On this episode, we speak about emotional hoarding. Many of us are holding on to thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that don't serve us. Like clothes that don't fit, outdated newspapers, and way too many plastic bags, people are literally walking around holding on to thoughts of the past, hurt feelings, and fear. Tune in as we dig deeper into emotional hoarding, how being self-conscious is a healthy thing, and more, right here on LifeClub.
I'm Tashima Jones. Welcome to LifeClub. I genuinely believe personal development unlocks the door to the abundant and wonderful life we all already have. I also believe we must be intentional about seeking out that life in order to find and fulfill it. I am so grateful your journey of discovery has led you all the way here. Let's keep moving forward together. Once again, welcome to Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. Welcome. Super excited to have you joining me. This is Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. So today we are going to speak about emotional hoarding. Yes, emotional hoarding. Some people hoard clothes, newspapers, plastic bags, and the like. But I truly believe most of us hoard our emotions and thoughts. We hoard low frequency vibes and traumatic events. Oftentimes, we are hoarding these intense feelings and thoughts of despair without really even understanding it. So unpacking our thoughts and emotions frees us up to live a life of ease and peace. So let us unpack. We're going to first start with this whole idea of hoarding itself. So what is hoarding and how does it impact our daily lives? Hoarding is a behavioral pattern characterized by excessive acquisition of and an inability or unwillingness to discard large quantities of objects that cover living spaces of the home and cause significant distress and or impairment. Now that is the diagnosis that many people may get when they hoard material possessions that pretty much don't serve them any good purpose at all. So when we consider that and we take it from this physical aspect to this inner being or this inner reality of hoarding things, we are able to kind of see signs of the things that we may be holding on to. And that's basically what emotional hoarding is. It's holding on to emotions and events that aren't producing any good in our lives. And when we dig a little deeper into this idea, this term called hoard, we learn that to hoard is to really treasure a thing. It's considered a valuable stock or store. It's literally to take something and hide it and hold on to it. So oftentimes we get stuck in this revolving door, in this cycle of repeating bad habits, repeating unhealthy conversations, repeating, going in and out of the same type of relationship. The person may have a different name, but it's still the same situation. We might find ourselves in this cycle of having enough and then not having enough, having enough and then not having enough. Again, it's this idea of this cycle. And the reason why things tend to stay the same and even get worse is because we are holding on to thoughts and behaviors that aren't really getting us to that next level in our lives. So one of the things that I'm noticing when I dig into any word is that a lot of the words that we use today are perverted. They have a negative connotation. If you were able to see a quick video that I did on this idea of jealousy, you would have learned that the original definition or the origin of this word jealousy comes from zealous, and to have zeal for a thing is to adore it. It's to have a passion for it. And when you come back into modern day society, the word jealous has a negative connotation because it's misguided. And oftentimes a lot of the things that we do and say are misguided, because if you are a type of person who engages frequently into bad behaviors with such zeal and such aggression and such power, if you were to just take that same energy and put it towards something that's actually productive, how much further along in your personal life, in your spiritual life, in your financial life, in your life overall would you be? So it's so important for us to recognize, again, I always say, when you know the definition of a thing, you are better equipped to using it properly. And the same is true for this idea of hoarding a thing. I first want to get a little bit deeper into the low frequency, aka negative things that we tend to hoard, so that we can come full circle with the things that we should grasp onto and hold onto and never let go of. One of the major states of being that we hoard, remember, taking this concept of hoarding a thing and superimposing it onto our emotional and inner being and our spiritual being, when you take that idea of hoarding something, we get to this place of, okay, it may not be a physical thing that I'm hoarding, but what is the state of being that I'm hoarding? Remember, we are human beings, not human doings, not human havings. So we are all operating in this state of being, and you have to check yourself. You have to be mindful of the state of being that you are in at every single moment of the day. It is so important, so vital to know what type of energy you're carrying around, because we hear this thing, keep that same energy, but there's a lot of energy that a lot of us need to let go of. And again, one of the major states of being that we hoard, aka treasure, aka hold on to and have this unwillingness to discard or let go of, is fear/worry. When we are real with ourselves, we recognize that society and culture are really set up for its citizens to be in panic mode. Whether it's marketing and advertising telling you everything that may be wrong with you, to something else basically saying that you are not enough until you have this thing. When you recognize that this is how the society that we operate in is set up, you start to understand that there's this level of dependency that we are pushed to actually live by. And we have to break free of that. And again, that dependency is fear. It's worry. Again, when you know the definition of a thing, you are better equipped to use it properly. Worry is basically this idea of choking a person. It is taking the breath out of a person. That's why when you deal with anxiety, you might not be able to breathe, your heart starts racing, all of these other things are happening to you, and you literally feel like the walls are closing in on you. And that is, again, this idea of worry and of fear. You have to understand that fear equals death. There is no type of healthy fear. It does not exist. Yes, we have, again, perverted this idea of I need fear in order to motivate me, but what you are doing is literally sabotaging your inner being. You're literally breaking down your mind and your heart, and you are transforming your inner being to become this energy of worry, fear, panic. So when we practice that over and over, when we practice allowing fear to motivate us, when we practice allowing fear to push us to do certain things, we are retraining our brains to operate on panic mode. And then what we start to do in order to protect ourselves is think of the worst thing that we can think of in order to push us into one direction or the other. And it's almost as if you start to turn on yourself. It's almost as if you start to betray yourself, is what I call it. So we have to be mindful of the state of being that we are in. And oftentimes that state of being is fear. It is worry. It is this space of looking over your shoulder. It's this space of not knowing what's going to happen next. And again, our society and culture isn't built up on this idea of peace and ease. Everything is a struggle. Everything is toil. Everything is nervous. Everything is, I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say Anyway, everything is basically set up for you to be dependent on the pillars of society, number one, but then also be in fear mode all of the time. And it's just plainly not a healthy life to live. When you look up what fear and stress, anxiety, worry, and even depression do to your physical body, you start to recognize that if you do not limit your mind and change how you operate on a daily basis. Too often we are thinking 10 years ahead, 5 years ahead, 4, 3, 2, 1 year ahead, when we need to really be mindful of where we are in the right now, because you will not make it to that point or to that vision or to that dream or even to that goal if you don't deal with where you are in this moment, because today is one of the many building blocks that will get you to where you want to go in the future. So being mindful of your current state of being. Once again, we are speaking about emotional hoarding. It is this idea of treasuring a thing, of concealing a thing, of being in this space of holding so tightly to a thing and not wanting to let it go. And this idea of hoarding when it comes to behavior is when we are holding on to material things that do not serve us, to the point where we collect so much of it that it literally buries us and it literally imposes itself on our lives. And the interesting thing about hoarding, when you ever look into this idea, is that the person who is hoarding is causing the discomfort in their own lives. And again, one of the major states of being that we tend to hoard and hold on to is this idea of fear and worry. I want to speak a little bit about traumatic experiences, because what I have learned in my own personal life is that when I may have experienced a traumatic event, I would use fear as a protective mechanism. Okay, I do not want this to ever happen to me again. Therefore, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to think in a certain way, aka I'm going to watch my shoulder. I'm going to do background checks. I'm going to make sure I do all of these things to guard myself and to protect myself from this ever happening to me again. And that becomes in itself this emotional hoarding, because now I have collected thoughts and emotions from one traumatic event, and I'm bringing all of those emotions with me throughout my journey ahead. And it's almost as if you are acting in life, behaving in life, being in life, as if this traumatic event is happening to you over and over and over again. And I totally understand this desire to protect yourself and to guard yourself and to not want to experience pain or discomfort again. But the dangerous thing in trying to protect ourselves in a negative, low frequency state is that we damage the relationships that we could possibly create. We damage our livelihood. We damage our daily routine. We damage ourselves in the process of trying to protect ourselves from something that has happened in the past. And I haven't necessarily cracked that code of fully understanding why certain things happen, but what I do know is that you have to make peace with traumatic experiences, so much so that you free yourself from it and you trust spirit to protect you moving forward. It is so vital, so important to not let certain things in our past damage our present and our future. And again, one of the things that truly damages our opportunity to live a happy, healthy, fun life is taking the emotions and the fears and the worries from past traumatic event into our present and into our future. We have to basically make peace with that event, with that person, and even with ourselves in order to move forward freely. So, we spoke a little bit about what emotional hoarding is. We spoke about a major state of being that we hoard in, and that is, again, fear and worry. Now, I want to speak a little bit about the release of those things. I mentioned already about making peace with the things that may have happened to us. But another area that we have to, I'm not sure if making peace with it is the proper way of saying it, but we have to come into this knowing of who we are. oftentimes it's not a traumatic event that may have occurred with us. It may simply be how we see ourselves. And you know the saying that hurt people hurt people. I like to turn that around and say, well, happy people love people, or loved people love people. And what I mean by that is, if you are in a state of peace within yourself, you're going to treat other people that way. When you are in a state of peace with yourself, your perspective of your personal life is going to be very different from when you are unhappy with yourself, from when you don't even know your gifts and your talents, from when you don't really see the good on the inside of you. And this is another thing that we tend to hoard. We tend to hoard a really bad story about who we are, and it may be because you weren't affirmed growing up by your loved ones. It may be because you didn't do so well in school or on the job. It may be because you don't look like or have the things that other people around you have and how they look. There's a few areas where we gain esteem. But at the same time, we have to understand that self-esteem comes from yourself. So no matter how much somebody puts you down or builds you up, if you do not have a healthy perspective of who you are, you're not going to believe the person who's building you up. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to side with the person who is tearing you down. So again, another area that we tend to hoard low frequency vibes in is self-esteem. It's the opinion that we have of ourselves. Again, we have to release this negative self-image. We have to release this image of us not winning or not being the best that we were created to be. You have to recognize the story that you are telling yourself about yourself. It is so important, so vital for you to be aware. Again, another term that we have that has become negative or has a negative connotation is being self-conscious. You should be conscious and aware of yourself. That is healthy. But the thing that makes it unhealthy is when that picture and that image that plays over and over in your head is negative. That's when it becomes an issue. But we all should have some level of awareness of ourselves. Because again, a lot of us are walking around out of our minds, literally not aware of how we see ourselves and the perspective of life that we have. And the list goes on and on. You're so detached from your emotions. You're so detached from your mind that you are operating in basically sleep. Like you're just sleeping and you're just behaving, and then you're wondering why you're getting the results that you're getting from life. It's because you're not tapped in to who you are within. So we all need to have some level of self-awareness. We all need to have this idea of identity. You have to have that, because you will experience in life what it is that you see on the inside of yourself. Remember, the inner reality creates the outer form. And when you do not know what your inner reality looks like, when you do not know who you are and what it is that you were called to do, when you are unaware of the gems and the jewels that exist within, you literally pass up this opportunity to live an amazingly wonderful life. So you have to be self-conscious. Yes, you have to be self-conscious. You have to be aware of yourself. And being aware of yourself really comes down to the paradigm that you have about not only yourself, but about spirit and about life. I truly believe there are 3 components of self-consciousness and self-awareness. It's understanding your philosophy towards spirit, understanding your philosophy towards yourself, and understanding your philosophy towards life. Once again, if you are just tuning in, we are speaking about emotional hoarding. So just for a quick recap of our first half, emotional hoarding is this concept of holding on to thoughts, experiences, and behaviors with an unwillingness to let them go. I think I need to say that again. Emotional hoarding is this concept of holding on to thoughts, experiences, and behaviors with an unwillingness to let them go. Remember, to hoard is to treasure a thing. And where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So a major tool in reversing the issue of hoarding is to hoard a new thing, a hashtag good thing. Imagine if we hoarded, aka treasure. Imagine if our treasures were joy, peace, love, and good thoughts. Again, to hoard a thing is to treasure it. So this concept of emotional hoarding can either be positive or negative, depending on the thing that you are hoarding. I wanted to run down some tips and tools on how to move forward and how to transition from hoarding things that do not serve you to hoarding things that really lift you up and really put you on the path of alignment that we all, whether secretly or openly, are truly desiring. So it's really about release. First, we have to release fear and worry. We have to release those things in exchange for hope and faith, aka the expectation of good. We have to release a low self-esteem for a healthy image of who we truly are through understanding identity. Remember, you have heard it here on LifeClub. You should be self-conscious. You should be aware of yourself. But again, it is in what are you aware of that makes that thing profitable or unprofitable for you. And last but not least, we have to release traumatic events. And the way that we release traumatic events is really making peace with them, making peace with whatever happened, making peace with the person whoever caused some sense of disappointment. Oftentimes people are walking around not even know that they hurt our feelings. So we have to really make peace with those things. And what has really helped me in making peace with my past has definitely been releasing myself from any guilt or shame from any event that may have taken place. It's also understanding other people involved, if there were other people involved at all, and understanding where their hurt and pain may have been, because you have to understand, once again, that hurt people, but I'm so happy to know that loved people love people. And if you want to be a loved person, I truly believe you have to receive love first in order to give it. And part of that is truly making peace with whomever and whatever has ever happened to you. And oftentimes making peace with it simply is this idea of releasing it, releasing the hurt, releasing the pain, releasing the disappointment. Oftentimes you won't get a sorry. Oftentimes you might even not even want to apologize directly to the person, or for whatever reason you might not be able to. You have to simply release it, opening up your hands. You cannot grasp onto something new if you're holding on tightly to something from the past. That is what we call surrender. It is letting go of one thing and holding on to another thing. So to release these traumatic events, really purge yourself on the inside. I like writing, of course, prayer, meditation, but really having that dialogue, having that conversation between you and spirit, and really unpacking the circumstance. Oftentimes, releasing a thing can simply be just acknowledging that it happened. Because whatever you do not acknowledge, you cannot heal from. So that is so important and so vital to really releasing traumatic experiences and making peace with them. I have to tell you, I'm sure you've heard it, and I'm hoping that if you haven't gotten it yet, this will be the moment that you get it in order to move forward and really be even in the present. You have to stop looking behind you, because again, you are in this revolving door of trauma and drama. And like Mary said, no more drama in my life. It is 2020, okay? So we really, really, really have to be intentional about releasing fear. And again, I truly believe that you cannot surrender a thing unless you have something to grab hold onto. I always see this picture in my head of surrender, where it's like you're in the middle of the water and you're about to go over this waterfall, and you're holding onto this tree branch, but then somebody pulls out like a pole or something to pull you back in. And in order for you to go back onto dry land, or go back onto land itself, I don't like saying dry land, go back onto land overflowing with milk and honey, you have to let go of that tree branch and hold and grasp onto the pole, because if you don't, you'll be stuck there, and that's not something that you want to do. So again, we have to surrender. We have to let go of fear and worry in exchange for hope and faith, aka the expectation of good. We have to release, aka let go of low self-esteem, and start to really dig on the inside of you for your true identity. And last but not least, we have to release traumatic events and experiences. And I truly believe in order to do that, you have to grab onto peace. A lot of the life work that we have to do is in the invisible realm. You have to get outside of this 5 sensory realm, because again, you will be stuck there. And like we always say, the inner reality creates the outer form. So if you want to see change externally, you have to be willing to change internally. It is so important and so vital. And it wasn't until I got a little bit deeper in what I call spiritual rehab that I started to understand that I really wasn't seeking these external blessings, these external things, as much as I was seeking this inner peace and this inner reality. When you have inner peace, and when you have a sense of knowing on the inside of you that it is well, that changes everything. That changes your relationships, that changes your experiences, that changes your finances, that changes so much of the things that you experience in the 5 sensory realm. Remember, a child is not formed outside of the mother's womb, or like on top of the skin. It's an inside job, and we have to really take that seriously, and we have to be super intentional about dealing with what is going on within us. I cannot say that enough, because life is truly happening on the inside of you. And again, it doesn't negate what you can have in the 5 sensory realm. It really, honestly, makes what you do have in the 5 sensory realm so much more enjoyable, so much more pleasant, and so much more of a pleasure, because you, number one, have a firm stance on what is real. And I remember Kevin Hart speaking about this concept of Hollywood and recognizing that it's not real. And that allows you to enjoy it so much more, because number one, you have something so much greater working on the inside of you, and so much greater peace working on the inside of you, that everything else in life is a bonus, basically. So we are speaking about emotional hoarding, and it's this concept of holding on to thoughts, experiences, and behaviors with an unwillingness to let them go. To hoard a thing is to treasure it, and whatever you are treasuring, it will definitely show up in your heart, and your heart will speak it forth through your mouth and in your behaviors. So one of the main things that we have to do is release. We have to release fear. We have to release a low self-esteem, and we have to release traumatic events. Again, releasing fear for hope and faith, aka expectation of good, and releasing a low self-esteem for your true identity, and releasing traumatic events in exchange for peace. Now, once you go through that regimen, and it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes you being extremely intentional to really secure these things on the inside of you. So much of our life's work is unlearning the things that are not profitable. Remember, this concept of discovering something is revealing it. It's uncovering something that is already there. Let's just take a deep breath on that. You have to understand that everything that you need is on the inside of you. And the more in tune you become with that concept, the lighter your burdens will be. You have to get that. You have to be so intentional about understanding that. And I always say, try it, especially if things aren't really working in your life right now. It doesn't hurt to try something new. You're really not losing anything when you try something new, especially if you feel like you are at rock bottom, or you've tried everything else and you're really not sure of what to do. Just start being intentional about your inner being and what that person on the inside is experiencing. Too often we are chasing the external things in life, and oftentimes we'll get that thing and it really won't even matter. It really won't even quench that thirst, because it's just like water. Like, you drink a cup of water, you're going to be thirsty again. It's not going to sustain you. You have to really continue to get that. And the dangerous thing about always craving something so that you can always have this high is that you will never be full of it, because it doesn't come from external things. I always say a living creature doesn't get life from dead things. I feel like that's hashtagable. A living creature does not get life from dead things. So we don't eat rocks because they do not have any life in them. Now, we could eat them, but it's not to say, and we could get technical because there are minerals and all this good stuff in rocks, but let's just not, take things too far in this analogy, understanding that you will never receive life from a car, from clothes, from money, from fame, from all of these things that we constantly try to feed ourselves in order to be happy and to have peace. You will never truly live this life of abundance on material possessions. And you can ask the wealthiest of the wealthy, and if they are honest with you, they will say the same thing. I actually had the pleasure of studying under a co-author of The Millionaire Next Door, and I talk about this in Being Broke, Being Rich. Go into his office, I miss an exam, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what creative story am I going to come up to tell him? And the interesting thing about our conversation was that it had nothing to do with my test. He really asked me questions about my inner being and where is my faith and the things that I'm experiencing on the inside. And that truly, truly stayed with me, because here is this guy who knows about wealth, who knows about money, who lives a materially wealthy life. Even he understands what our true treasures should be. So again, you have to recognize that dead things, man-made things, are not going to sustain you. They're not going to give you that joy, that peace, that high that you are secretly or openly looking for. Again, in order to deal with emotional hoarding, there is this space of release. Releasing fear, releasing worry, releasing traumatic events, and releasing a low self-esteem. Now, to the good stuff. And this is something that I hold until this very moment, is because it's what I want you to take with you and what I want you to meditate on in the coming days. You have to start being extra when it comes to thoughts that boost your mood. You have to literally OD on things that are lovely, things that are pure, things that are uplifting. And oftentimes we get a little afraid to do that because of this idea that those things aren't going to last. But the more you do that, the more you focus on love, the more you focus on happiness, the more you focus on the good things in your life, you will start to see those things show up in your life. Because the reality of it is, a lot of us are experiencing really great lives, but because we are not tapped in to that peace and to that joy and to that abundance on the inside, we do not recognize it. The life of our dreams is staring us right in the face, but because we are so burdened with sadness or guilt or disappointment or fear of the future, we cannot live the life of our dreams. So we have to really be mindful of that. When you start to understand your life is literally staring back at you, hoping, wishing, and praying that you recognize who you are on the inside, that you take up this idea of abundance, and that you allow yourself to be free to have great expectation, to be free to have hope and happiness, to be free to really grasp on to what love is, to what goodness is, what abundance is, what joy is. You are able to truly live the life of your dreams. So, once again, we have to become #extra about the good things in our lives. We have to dig in and be intentional about discovering our true identity and having a healthier self-esteem. You have heard it here on Life Club that being self-conscious is a very healthy thing. It just depends on what you are aware of. So take that home with you. Start to release the things that do not serve you. Start to release the fear. Start to release the low self-esteem. Start to release and make peace with the traumatic experiences that you have gone through in your life. Remember to hold on, to hoard those things that boost your mood, that boost your confidence, that boost the love that exists on the inside of you. Yes, as always, that felt super duper good. Once again, this is Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. You can find more information about me, including Life Club, articles, and so much more on tashimajones.com. Remember your greatness. Talk soon.
I am Tashima Jones, and you've been listening to Life Club. Thank you for tuning in.